For taking the time to chat to us today. It's an absolute honor having you on the show, and I've got to say congratulations on this film. It's such a beautiful film.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed making it.
So tell us a little bit about how you first became involved with the film.
Wow, this was a really interesting one actually, because it turned into a bit of a rush job. What happened was the distributors who were going to distribute the film in the UK to begin with, realised that the audio that they had for Riki and Benny the Duck just weren't quite what they needed for the UK. So they had to re-record all the dialogue in 2 days.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you know anything about recording films, it usually takes a little longer than 2 days. So the distributors actually knew me. And they said, would you be willing to do this? And I said, well, let's absolutely give it a go. I was already friends with Paul Reynolds, who plays Benny the Duck. So he and I were both thrilled to be working together for the first time. And we just went in there and gave it our best shot. So
what's the first step that you take when they gave you the call and said, we want you to voice a rhino? What do you do?
Well, I said yes, because I think it's every actor's dream to voice a cartoon animal, right?
Yep.
Has to be. And rhinos, I thought, well, I grew up in Singapore, and I used to love going to the zoo with my parents at Changi, where they actually had a rhinoceros. And I used to love going and say hello to it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it looked like a dinosaur and all that. So I thought, okay, rhino, here we go. I immediately thought, well, there's no point trying to get into the headspace of a rhino because I don't know what that's like. So I just went for Riki being a little boy who has sadly lost his mother. So that was where I started with it. And I sort of started trying out a few voices. I went to the director and I said, how does this sound? And he said, that sounds good. And then we went straight into the booth and we just started trying it out.
So we have a lot of young actors and actresses that listen to this show. When you say you start trying out the voice, do you try out the different voices on your own? Do you try it out in front of people to get some feedback? Or how does that work?
I first started on my own, and I also thought immediately about all of the different cartoon voices that I grew up with. You know, things like Bart Simpson, who, of course, is also voiced by a woman.
Yep.
And I thought about what was his voice like. I thought, well, you know, Riki maybe isn't quite so like Bart as maybe Bambi. So then I listened to Bambi, and I thought, how does Bambi sound? And eventually, after imitating those voices and working out which bits from those I liked, I started putting together Riki from what I knew about his character from reading the script.
It's interesting that you mentioned Nancy Cartwright from The Simpsons, because I just read an article the other day that was talking about the fact that she once got thrown out of a restaurant because she told someone that she voiced Bart Simpson, and they refused to believe that an actress voiced the part. They thought it was an actor, and they threw her out of the restaurant. It's like, wow, I can't imagine that.
No, that's amazing, isn't it? And imagine sitting next to this like lovely little woman and then suddenly hearing that voice coming out.
So, you said that it was a rush job, that you only had a couple of days. How much stress did that put you under as an actress doing that?
You know, I would say stress is probably the wrong word, because we had an incredibly supportive team. Yeah. We had Ross, the director. We had our wonderful sound engineer, who I think had way more stress than us, because he had to get a train in from Germany or somewhere that morning and just come straight to London to record with us. But they were so they were calm, they were collected, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And they would show me which lines I would need to record. Paul and I didn't actually record together. We'd go in one at a time to give each other a break.
Yep.
And so we would run through the lines. I'd record them. The director might sort of say, "Yeah, your voice went a bit high there. Maybe try to be a bit more boy in that one," and things like that. And we just went through it like that.
So, talk us through that process when you go into the studio to actually record. Do you go directly through the scripts, like one line after another, or do they just give you select parts to do at different times?
Select parts mostly. We tended to do it kind of scene by scene with this particular one, because again, it gave Paul and I a chance to have a rest in between. So we would do each scene. make sure it was all clear, make sure the timings were all right, and then we'd move on to the next one. But I love doing sound booth work because it's one of the very few acting jobs where you don't have to worry about what you look like.
Yep, it's a lot like radio. We always joke in radio we have it a lot luckier than TV presenters because we can just turn up in tracksuit pants and a t-shirt if we feel like it on the day. So, yeah.
Exactly. So not only can you be incredibly comfortable, but you also don't have to worry about things like, oh, am I opening my eyes too much, or am I waggling my eyebrows? Does that look silly? It doesn't matter when you're just doing a voice.
Did you have to do any voice acting during the pandemic? Because we actually had a guest on our show a couple of weeks ago who was an anime voiceover actor, and he said that a lot of his were done in a wardrobe wearing his pajamas during the lockdown. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really funny. As a matter of fact, I did do a voiceover during a pandemic. There's a wonderful artist called Clive Hicks Jenkins who illustrated a new version of Beauty and the Beast. And they decided during the pandemic to animate the drawings from the book to make a short video. And I narrated the book. So I did not just the voice of Beauty, but I did the voice of Beast, and I did all of the like the candelabras in the house and the gates to the compound and all of that. And luckily, I happen to live 10 minutes walk away from a studios here in London, which is coincidentally where we also recorded Riki.
Wow. So
I was able, even during the pandemic, to sneak into the studio to do a bit of voice recording because, I could socially distance.
Yeah. Jennifer, what is it that you love about doing voice acting? Is there something about it that attracts you to it to make you want to keep going back and doing it?
Yes, you can be anything when you're doing voiceover work. As long as you're using your instrument correctly, that's it. Nobody looks at you and goes, oh, we actually wanted a brunette or we wanted a boy. You can just go in there, and if you sound right, you can do it. And I love that.
Now, we talked a little bit before about getting into the character of Riki, but what was your first thoughts when you read the script for this film? Because it is such a beautiful film, but it's also an important film as well with the message that it's portraying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just loved the idea that poor Riki is so distraught when he loses his horn and then finds out that his superpower wasn't that all along. It was what was within him. I just thought that was such a sweet message for children, as well, of course, as the conservation message. Because I don't know about you, but for a children's film, I think it's pretty scary at the start with that poacher.
Definitely, yeah. And it was funny that you mentioned Bambi before, because that was the film that I instantly thought of when I was watching this film. I remember when I was a little kid how terrified I was when I first watched Bambi and saw what happened to Bambi's mother, and then the same happens here. But because I volunteer in animal conservation, I also saw the importance of getting that message across as well. So.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I love the fact that this film was made in Indonesia by Indonesians about a very specifically Indonesian conservational problem. I think it's absolutely fantastic that they've done this. I think it's really exciting, and I really hope that I'll be involved in the sequels. Definitely.
Have you had any feedback so far from children that have watched the film as well?
Just relatives. But they enjoyed it, which was good. And I think the funniest feedback I've actually had was from the adult watching it with the kids. And she said, normally you're sitting there scrolling through your phone during a kid's movie, doing all that kind of stuff. She said, with this one, you couldn't scroll through your phone because every 2 seconds something happens and you're going, wait, what did I miss? What's going on?
Well, I think it's a film that's going to be loved by a lot of Australian children because, of course, a lot of our generation of kids here have grown up watching Steve Irwin and his family with their shows. So a lot of younger kids here now are very much into animal conservation. So I think this is going to be absolutely wrapped up by those kids that are into animal conservation.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've been lucky enough to go to a few different zoos and parks in Australia, and I think that they've really have got it spot on with teaching children young about the importance of conservation. I think Australia is really a front runner in that.
Yeah, I volunteer with an organisation that teaches kids about the dangers of using palm oil and what it does, well, the impact that it has on the environment and animals. And it's funny because a lot of the parents come back to us and they say the children went home that night and started to go through the pantry and started to find items that shouldn't be in there because of the palm oil. And it's like Australian children get so passionate about it that I think this film is going to become very, very popular, especially in schools.
Oh, I really hope so, and I really do think that the younger generation are the ones that are really going to save this planet. I do.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned before about sequels. That was actually going to be a question I was going to ask. Have there been talks about bringing Riki back in some sequels?
There sure have. There's even a Nintendo game to go along with the film. They're planning hopefully 2 sequels. I don't know when they'll be going into development, but I'm keeping my ears open, hoping that the distributors will be able to tell me if I've won the part the second time around.
Definitely. Well, Jennifer, I cannot wait to be able to see those sequels, and I know a lot of people out there are going to be very, very keen on the game as well. And I guess to finish up, what would you like to say to people out there who are about to sit down and watch this film with their kids?
I'd say strap in and have fun, because yes, it has an important message. Yes, it has a very frightening beginning, but it is also jolly good fun, and I hope you enjoy it very much.